Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of The Failure Effect, a show about reclaiming the word failure and turning it into success. Every week, we talk to people from all walks of life about their experiences with failure and how they have helped them emerge bigger, better, stronger. Today, we're talking to a very ambitious young woman, so ambitious that she started a program to help people learn to cope with the effects of dealing with failure after she experienced a series of losses in her own journey through business. It wasn't always like this. She started off in career, but I'm not going to tell you her story. I'll let her tell it to you herself. Her name is Beth Gachurah. Welcome to the show, Beth.
Thank you, Ayua.
All right.
Thank you.
Now, I've seen you on our Facebook platform, so I have to say thank you. Thank you very much for taking the time to interact with the page, to interact with the failure effect. And also, I would just like to say at this point, I am so excited to hear your story because your story is the definition of everything that we talk about
Mm.
in every episode of this show. So, we're going to start right at the top. You have had a beautiful career.
Yes.
So, what were you doing before you decided to venture into business?
Thank you, Wayu. I'm happy to be here. Thank you
Hmm.
for inviting me. And I must first of all start by commending you, your show, The Failure Effect. I
Thank
think
you.
I resonate with it because that's my language.
Hmm.
And my language, I like to discuss failure because many times we like to cover it
Hmm.
and not talk many times about it as often as we should.
True.
So thank you very much. I'm very
Correct.
grateful to be here.
Hmm.
Well, I started my career at a very young age as a banker.
Hmm.
I say that I didn't tarmac. I was actually came from a lecture room to an interview room and landed myself a job.
Wow.
So I was still in school. I was still in college at that time.
Hmm.
I was in the School of Monetary Studies studying banking. And that's how I started off my very good career in banking and a career that saw me rise over time and over the years to a very even senior positions
Hmm.
in my experience. Yes,
Hmm.
so that's my background. Career I also loved,
Hmm.
but at some point I made a decision just to change my life. Yeah.
Okay. And this is after how many years of working in banking and how many different banks? You don't need to tell us which bank specifically, but just so that we have a picture of what you're walking away from in order to walk into this new venture.
Well, I'm an experienced banker with over 14 years, I would say.
Hmm.
14 years, I worked in different departments.
Hmm.
Uh, I worked in customer service. I worked in operations.
Hmm.
In three different banks.
Hmm.
I will not mention them,
Okay.
but that was a very illustrious career that actually launched me up.
Hmm.
Maybe at this point, I would want to say, in the new journey I'm on in
Hmm.
coaching,
Hmm.
my clients are my colleagues that I worked with in the banking industry, which is a very interesting thing.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to get that. We'll get there in detail, but just so that we're clear,
Yeah.
the coaching business you're talking about is called Bounce Back.
Yes,
O-
correct. Bounce
Okay.
back and beam.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what do they do?
In Bounce Back and Beam, it's a transformational journey. It
Mm-hmm.
was born out of my own experience.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it's not just a career or a business, it's a calling.
Yeah.
Because I share the lessons I learned through my very difficult season,
Mm-hmm.
and a season I hadn't seen coming,
Mm-hmm.
a season I had not envisioned.
Mm-hmm.
But in going through that, I was able to reinvent myself and really find my true north,
Right.
which is my calling and my purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So now I support people. I like to refer to myself as a dream partner
Mm-hmm.
because I'm just a partner in your journey
Mm-hmm.
and helping you just figure out your journey if you have gone through setbacks. And many of us go through setbacks,
Yeah.
they go through adversity. We go through odds and barriers, even right now, what's happening all across in the globe, and all
Mm-hmm.
across Kenya.
Mm-hmm.
People going through very many things.
Mm-hmm.
So disruptive technologies, job losses, job restructurings, losses. I lost a lot. I have
Mm-hmm.
lost a lot. People going through grief. So what I learned and how I was able, out of that very difficult, painful period, to reinvent myself and find my purpose. That's the journey that I walk with people in the coaching program, just helping them then tell them this is not the end. There's a difference
Mm-hmm.
between failure and yourself. Failure is not how our story gets to end.
Yeah.
Beyond failure, beyond pain, shame, and tears, there's a beautiful life that awaits us on the other side. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the whole essence of the coaching program, Bounce Back and Beam. To beam is just to shine your light.
Mm-hmm.
I encourage people, shine your light because every one of us has light that we carry.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But now that we have established that you had a successful career, we have established that you saw a lot of loss, and after you left the career and decided to go off on your own. So the natural question right now is, what inspired this move? Like, what was burning inside you that told you, okay, time to pack up and go and do this thing?
Uh, Back in my career, when I look back, I quit my job in 2018. It was
Mm-hmm.
a decision I made over after consultations,
Mm-hmm.
after also much prayer, because
Mm-hmm.
I feel I need to connect with
Yeah.
God, you know.
Yeah.
Because beyond coaching, I am also a minister of the gospel.
Okay.
And I have been a Christian for the better part of my life. I mean, as far as I can remember.
Mm-hmm.
So that takes me back to tell you how I landed into and I got into quitting my job. It was a bold decision.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I had not envisioned that this would be my path.
Mm-hmm.
All I remember is I had reached a level and I was fatigued. I was fatigued. I had lost some joy and some oomph in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I hated Mondays, you know.
Yeah.
Mondays were a nightmare.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, it's a Monday, I'm going back to work.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not to say that I had a very good job at the time. I had a
Mm-hmm.
job that many people admired. I had a job that I also liked at some point, but it's just about life. Something in me began to get unsettled. Something in me began to feel there's much more to life
Yeah.
than just this. I began to get dissatisfied. I began to dream more, to envision myself differently.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't happen just at once. It was progressive. It happens over time. It happened over time. And I got to think about it. I remember one Sunday I was very dissatisfied. That Sunday, I felt like I was in the wrong place. Mind you, I was still doing my job. I was still
Mm-hmm.
going to work, but I felt like this is not Beth.
Yeah.
There's another Beth on the inside of me that I needed to unleash and to bring out. And I felt at my time I wasn't able to do that. So I remember this particular Sunday, I called one of my bosses at work. The institution at the bank I was in, it was part of a group. So we had a group head of human resource. And I had relations with him. He was accessible. So I remember calling him one Sunday morning and just sharing with him what I was going through. I was dissatisfied. I didn't know how to. I was wondering, do I change my position to where I was to a different department?
Mm-hmm.
I just had such a dissatisfaction. So, but I also felt I had served 8 years at the bank at the
Mm-hmm.
time. I'd served 8 years. And for me, numbers also speak. So I felt like eight was a number for a new beginning.
Yeah.
And everything in me felt I was up to a new beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Only that I didn't know what awaited me on quitting my job. So anyway, after some time, I got to learn the company advertised for restructuring, and they said they would give voluntary exit
Mm-hmm.
from the bank. And I was like, this is my long-awaited opportunity
Mm-hmm.
to smoothly exit.
Yeah.
You know, it was like a smooth exit, a soft exit.
Mm-hmm.
And that is how I got to quit my job. I leave the banking industry in 2018.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I suppose in hindsight, considering everything that happened in 2020, you kind of start to think about, woo. But anyway, before we get there, what was it that you were quitting to do? What was the passion that drove your heart?
Uh, be- to coaching or to
No, no,
what?
no. This is in 2018 when
In
you.
2018.
Yeah.
I think at the time, what I thought, actually, it's interesting. In hindsight, what I thought is that I was going to get another job in a
Mm-hmm.
different industry other
Mm-hmm.
than banking.
Okay.
I'd felt banking had become a bit of routine.
Mm-hmm.
I'd learned a lot. I wasn't seeing my growth path in that
Mm-hmm.
industry.
Mm-hmm.
So when I quit my job, was I was going to reinvent myself. And I'm the kind of person who like to figure out things.
Yeah.
Sometimes, okay, with the areas I like to take risks, but in that one, I like to figure out things. So I had an all well laid up plan
Mm-hmm.
that I was going to reinvent myself, probably in a similar position, but in a different industry.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had gotten in touch with recruiters.
Yeah.
I had all these recruiters lined up. I was going to do interviews. I was going to get a good job. And I had a business that I had started on the side while I was still at the bank. So my life at that point was very well figured
Mm-hmm.
out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as you know, plans fail, and that didn't work out. So I just felt like I want to do the same job, kinda. I was an executive assistant.
Right.
And so I thought I was going to be an executive assistant in a different industry.
Industry.
I
Yeah.
liked my job as an executive assistant. I
Yeah.
like planning.
Yeah.
I like meeting with different people. I like
Yeah.
talking with
Yeah.
different people. I like being in view because at that position gives you kind of 360 degrees view of what's happening in the organization. So I like that. And I was going to see how I was going to change and grow my career in corporate governance because that was also an area I was keen on.
Right.
Coming to be an executive assistant, let me tell you, let me just take a back. I was coming from operations and compliance. And so I felt like now going to corporate governance was also now the best part that I was going to do.
Yes.
It gave me a very good foundation. And that's how I just felt I'm going to do this, but on an entirely different industry. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So what happened with, did you get the interviews that you had lined up?
Oh, I did so many. I did
Uh-huh.
so many interviews, and I began them immediately after I quit. I remember this is just actually 1 year, surprisingly, because I quit on 30th of May. That was my last working day.
Wow.
Last 30th of May 2018. And immediately after, I met with these recruiters and I began to do interviews. And I did so many. I did so many. I mean, I did so many. Sometimes I would be told I was overqualified. They couldn't afford me in some
Yeah.
places. Others, I didn't have the experience they were looking for, or I didn't have the qualifications they were looking for. I did so many interviews. I had all these recruiters. I think sometimes in a day I would do 3 interviews.
Wow.
I did so many and nothing came through. Nothing was
Okay.
coming out. So I began to get some also frustration because I'm wondering, okay, what's not happening around here? My plan now began to unfold in a way I didn't expect because I'm not landing a job. Despite doing all these beautiful, good interviews, and I'll be told your resume looks good, your CV looks good, you have the experience, you have this. But I never landed myself a job. I mean, it didn't, I never, not once.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't land myself a job. And so I began to wonder, where is this taking me? And in between there, I also took breaks. I was like, maybe I'm not cut out for this.
Yeah.
I'm not cut out for employment anymore. Let me just focus on doing a business, which I'm currently even running on the side even now. Let me just give all my attention to the business. But there was still something I was feeling I'm wrongly placed.
Yeah.
I am not utilizing myself. The Beth that I know is not coming out. I was frustrated. I was unhappy. So the whole of 2019, I did so many interviews. 2020 is this time I was doing all these interviews. And now 2021 came in COVID.
Yes.
Um,
2020.
2020 came
Yes.
in COVID, yes.
Yeah.
But I remember very well, just before COVID, I had landed myself a job, only that I hadn't started.
Okay.
Because I remember doing this very good interview with a fintech company. I had the qualifications they were looking for. I had what they were looking for. I was
Yeah.
excited. It was a good fit. And so they told me what's remaining is just the final stage, then we start the job.
Yeah.
And then lo and behold, the first case of COVID in Kenya was announced.
Yeah.
And everything went to a freeze. Everything, they told me, just hold on. We don't know how long this is going to take. So just hold on. We'll get back to you within a very short time.
Yeah.
But it never did. COVID went on for months.
Yeah.
Months turned into 1 year.
Yeah.
Went to another year. And so that also didn't work.
Okay.
Also, what I didn't know is that was it was the introduction for me to a very, very difficult season of
Yeah.
my life.
Okay.
Yeah.
Aha. So just for, again, context setting, you're living in Nairobi at this point in time?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And the business you're running on the side is?
The business I was running on the side, I still do till today, it's a clothing business, selling clothes in retail and wholesale basis, and not just clothing, bedding and stuff. I had started it long while I was still
Yeah.
employed. I wasn't running it directly myself.
Yeah.
My mom is the one who was running it for me.
Okay.
And so I was kind of covered, you
Yeah.
know, I was covered. So yeah, that is when now 2020, even before 2020, because the business had started
Yeah.
earlier on and
Yeah.
it was still running.
Yeah.
So even this time I'm going for jobs, I know I'm running for jobs, but I still didn't feel like the business was
Mhm.
my place to stay. And yes, I was still living in Nairobi,
Mhm.
but the business wasn't in Nairobi. It was in my hometown. I come from Nyeri.
Okay.
So in Nyeri town,
Okay.
that's where the business was
Mhm.
and still is today.
Okay.
Yeah,
Excellent. Right. So let's go to you've done the interview with the fintech, and then COVID has come and changed everyone's lives and started a new chapter for you in your own
correct.
life.
Yes.
So what happened first?
So when COVID came, now with the lockdowns, I had just actually the lockdown happened while I was still in Nairobi.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I was able, sorry, no, let me take back a bit. I had just gone to Nyeri for a visit, a
Right.
short visit.
Yeah.
And this is the time I was doing interview. Mind you, I was very excited. I'm starting a new job.
Mm-hmm.
I'm starting a new job. I'm so excited. Everything is looking up. Everything is looking like now I'm going to get back into my rhythms once again. So I was in Nyeri. And then
Mm-hmm.
the lockdown in Nairobi was shut, so you couldn't come. And so I
Mm-hmm.
decided, let me just stay in Nyeri.
Mm-hmm.
And in Nyeri, I stayed, and I stayed at home for long. I stayed in Nyeri. Of course, this time there's no doing more interviews. It's just staying at home and seeing what's going to happen. I was still hopeful that I was going to get this kind of job. Yeah, I
Yeah.
still kept on holding on. I would call the recruiter and they would tell me they've not heard from their client, so you just wait. Everything is done. You can see how everything is. And so now COVID came,
Mm-hmm.
and in 2021, the worst happened because in 2021, during the Delta wave, I remember around Delta wave, my mom got sick.
Okay.
I still don't believe it. They didn't say it's COVID because she had had underlying conditions.
Yeah.
And at that time, I had traveled to be with a friend of mine. So I was not at home. And so she was sick for just a period of time. And I remember this particular day, I had just talked to her and asked her, and I told her, do you need me to be home? Then
Yeah.
she told me, no, if I need you to be at home, I'll tell you.
Okay.
I'll tell you. So we spoke around 6 p.m. But at around 8 p.m., I get this call, my mom has rested. She
Oh.
died. And I was like, wow, it was unbelievable. First of all, I didn't see it coming.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have a job at the time. That was 2021. I hadn't landed a job. Remember, I had quit my job in
Yeah.
2018.
Yeah.
So by 2021, I had already eaten up a lot of my savings
Yeah.
that I had kept aside
Mm-hmm.
to sustain me.
Mm-hmm.
But I was still having the business. She's the one who was running the business, even
Yeah.
that how at the shop. She was actually at work on that particular day.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that is how I lost mom. And so it became a very dark period. It was a very, very dark period,
Yeah.
difficult period, as I have lost a pillar of my life.
Yeah.
I'm a firstborn. We
Mm-hmm.
are a small family. I only have one sister.
Mm-hmm.
So I only had now my one sister and my dad.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, now I had to move back to Nyeri.
Yeah.
First of all, to figure out this new life
Yeah.
without a mother. So how do we even move? Do we move on? So at the time, we were also experiencing some turbulent times as a family. My sister was going through a very turbulent time in her marriage at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot was happening
Yeah.
at me and within me, all around me at the same time. So before I process all this fatigue of job looking and not landing a job, I'm getting good works, I'm getting regrets, I'm getting you wait, I'm getting all that. COVID comes in, the business is affected. And then now my mom in 2021, we lose mom. I couldn't figure out. I thought for some minutes, for some time, I was numb.
Yeah.
It took actually, I think, for that whole week until we buried her, I was numb. I was not able to process.
Yeah.
I wasn't crying a lot, but I liked my alone time.
Yeah.
So that happened on February of 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And so I moved back home to try figure out. And also one of the ways I tried to figure out this new life was now to go back to that business,
Yeah.
now to hold it for some time as I tried to see what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I was confused. I didn't know whether to keep looking for a job at that time or just to stay in that position. But all I knew, it required a different version of Beth.
Yeah.
It required for me now, I have to make decisions by myself.
Yeah.
Many times I would refer to my mother to help me make a decision here and there, but now I'm all by myself. So we are
Mm-hmm.
left just three of us in the family. And that began also a very difficult period.
Mm-hmm.
Things I hadn't seen. Now, at this time, frustration had checked in, loss has come in. I'm trying to redefine myself. And in the same year of 2021, August, I lost my grandmother.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is the mom of my mom.
Mm-hmm.
The two people who have held my life in a span of about less than 6 months,
About,
7 months,
yeah,
they're gone.
yeah.
So where do I even start?
Mm-hmm.
I have hardly grieved my mom or even processed the loss of my
Yeah.
mom. And then quickly, I have lost my grandma.
Mm-hmm.
So grief became part of my life.
Okay.
And I was wondering, so what is all this? I mean, where do I even start? What do I do? I
Mm-hmm.
felt very so much alone at the time, but I moved on. You have just to pull yourself by the bootstraps. You have to do now. That's why I'm very passionate about resilience. Let me
Yeah.
tell you, when I tell people that you can you can overcome failure, you can overcome loss, you can overcome grief, I talk from a place of experience.
Yeah.
And I talk from not my head, just head knowledge, but from my heart,
Mm-hmm.
because that's something I've experienced firsthand.
Yeah.
And so I know the feeling of my life at one point was like this. Suddenly, quickly,
It's,
fast and furious, it's like this.
yeah.
But then you don't get stuck with emotions.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a very difficult time, but I had just to pull myself and just see I have to now learn this new terrain I have found myself in,
Yeah.
of having to navigate a path that I hadn't seen coming. But I think because I'm a firstborn, much of growing up, I also was a very independent child,
Mm-hmm.
very, very independent. I had I'm the kind of person who makes decisions and was a big dreamer, very ambitious right from childhood. And those are some of the skills that held me together. Because even this with my mom gone, and now I have to refigure my life. I have to see what am I going to do? Am I going to stay in the business? Much as I'm feeling this is not my place, or am I going to look for a job? I remember having almost like a fight with a friend of mine because she was like, "You need to look for a job," and I was like, "No, I don't feel like I want to look for a job.
Mm-hmm.
I'm done." In fact, I would tell them I'm done, and they're like, "No, you're not done." So they would still send me these opportunities to look for a job, and I was like, some of them I would look at them and like,
Yeah.
that's not me.
Yeah.
There was a struggle, but also I felt like I was moving towards something, but
Mm-hmm.
only that at the time I had not put my finger to what is this something.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt like I was moving to something. I am a feeler. I like to feel things.
Yeah.
I move by intuition a lot. I'm a
Yeah.
very intuitive person.
Yeah.
I make decisions sometimes spontaneously. As long as I feel something or I see something, I have a way of learning my own rhythms.
Mm-hmm.
So I was feeling, some jobs looked very good, but I like,
Yeah.
I don't see myself there.
Mm-hmm.
So some of them would say, why not? Why are you not looking for a job? I mean, you are good at what you're doing. Why don't you look for a job? But I felt like,
Yeah.
no. So 2021, we move on now. Life is not getting any easier. And then now 2022, I'm feeling like I have mourned my mom, my
Yeah.
grandma.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're in 2022. I'm beginning to feel like my rhythms are back. I'm beginning to feel I want to get back to Nairobi. That's where my life is. That's where my crowd is. That's where I'm feeling like I connect with people. 2022. And in the May, come to think about it, May is a very pivotal month for me any time.
Yeah.
So in the month of May, I had just had a discussion with one of my mentors. And so my mentor was telling me, now I feel like your time in year is gone. You have, it's like you're past over the mourning period, the first one, the initial. So you need to get back to Nairobi. And so we had planned out and we said, it was a Saturday. So we agreed to meet the following week
Mm-hmm.
and carve out a plan we had. And the plan, first of all, top number one was for me to move back from Nyeri to
Mm-hmm.
Nairobi.
Mm-hmm.
It was in the month of May. It was on 22nd of May,
Right.
21st of May, 2022.
Uh-huh.
A Saturday that is as clear in my mind as it just happened today or yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And so we agree. Yeah, I'm excited. This plan, something is coming up. Yeah. What I didn't know is that on the same Saturday, my dad got an accident
Oh, yeah.
and he died on the spot.
Wow.
So that again sent me into more confusion
Yeah.
because I couldn't believe. I was like, God. Sometimes I felt like I like to have debates with God.
Yeah.
And much as I know everything that happens to us has a reason. The pain, the tears, the shame, the loss has a reason. But you know, when it's happening to you, sometimes you don't feel like it has a reason.
Yeah.
So I was like, God, can't do this to me. You can't. I mean, my mom, lost my grandma, and now
Now your
my
dad.
dad. And
Yeah.
for my dad, we had even spoken that particular Saturday as well. I remember I was in Nairobi, so I was not in Nyeri when the accident happened. He got the accident in Nyeri. He was driving at night and then got a head-on collision and he died on the spot. So I was not in Nyeri at the time.
Yeah.
It was a Saturday. I had come to Nairobi on the Friday, the day before. And on that Friday, I was with my dad.
Yeah.
And he too, we had plans. My dad loved me. And I remember when my mom passed on and we were left with my dad, I think he used to like to bringing me meat. Like all that time, my dad loved meat. And so I think he felt like he loves meat, so all of us love meat. So he would buy me meat like twice a week and tell me, put it in your fridge. I mean, just my dad used to buy me. So also, we used to have a lot of conversations. We would
Yeah.
have conversations with him. He would first of all ask me, what do you want? What do you think of your sister? As a firstborn, I felt like I was responsible a lot also in the family. So most of those conversations were between me and my dad. And so that Friday we had talked. So he had told me, I had told him I'm going for a meeting in Nairobi, but when I come back, we'll talk. So we had also, I was coming to talk. There's something we were trying to work around. But then again, Saturday, I got a call and I was told, I actually got a call from one of my uncles and told me, looks like, he told me he had received a call from someone and my dad had gotten an accident. I was like, okay. But they didn't even like it was a big deal. So I just felt, that uncle of mine, I just felt, so I'm going to call my dad. And actually I did.
Right.
I called and he didn't answer. The phone rang until it got disconnected. It didn't answer. And I saw it like, if my dad, I also knew him. I mean, he will call me. Actually, I was with a friend at the time, and I told him my dad will call me. I've been told it's an accident, but I know he will call me and tell me what's up. I said, wait. 1 hour. It was at night. The accident happened at night around 8 p.m.
Right.
So 1 hour to 9 p.m., no one has called me. I'm calling him, but this time his phone has gone off. The first time I called, it went through. Second time, it's not going through. I
Yeah.
mean, all right, I wait. I have dinner, and I say, let me sit in to watch a movie. Then I began to see calls from my family members. I'm like, I don't like it. But they didn't even click. I knew there was an accident. I knew my dad had been rushed to hospital. And I was okay. I mean, I was fine. I'm going to call him and he's not. So one of my cousins called me and told me, have you talked to your dad? I was like, no, I've called him. I was told he's in an accident and I'm trying to call him. His phone is off. How is he? So I was told he got an accident. And my cousin, I think she didn't muster the courage to tell me what was going on. She said, I'll call you.
Yeah.
Uh, Shortly, an aunt called me. My aunt called me, and I was like, okay. My aunt also called me and asked me, how are you doing? Where are you? And then hung up the call. So I began to feel these questions
Yeah.
aren't adding up.
Yeah.
What's going on? It's at night. By this time, I think it was way past 11. It's at around 11 p.m. So I was uncomfortable. But then again, the inevitable had happened and it had to be told. So my cousin called me and told me, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but your dad has gotten an accident, and we are afraid he's not in very good shape. So I'm trying to ask. I can tell my cousin how the conversation is going. And so, how is he? Has he been taken to hospital? They have been told he's been taken to hospital. He's with people. But then again, I think she just discovers there's no way to take me around, and she tells me, I'm sorry to tell you, your dad has died. Do you know, I threw the phone away.
Yeah.
I was like, no. And at the time, I asked God questions. I was like, you can't do this to me. And sometimes we think bad things happen because you have done something wrong. Because my first reaction was to ask, what wrong have I done?
Yeah.
At one point, you have your two parents, and then quickly,
Yeah.
you don't have any. But anyway, I had to. So my dad, he also, I also lost my dad. So my plan to move to Nairobi also now kind of, I had to defy it, had
Yeah.
to move it. I mean, at this time, even do I even know whether I want to move back? Is the
Yeah.
plan still there? But I knew this much happened to me. When I lost my dad, I knew now we are only two.
Yeah.
I'm not left with a choice. I have to be the strong one and make decisions and just find myself and do what needs to be done. I will mourn later. But now chaos happened around that time because of family issues that came up. But I still had to be the strong Beth.
Yeah.
And this time, I remember I had just lost my mom the previous year, my mom and my grandma, and I lost my dad. But it felt dark, it felt so dark. And a lot that I might have skipped in my story telling you that in the between losing my mom, losing my dad, I lost a lot. I mean, I lost friends, I
Yeah.
lost money, I lost things I owned. I was
Yeah.
just going through loss and loss and loss.
Yeah.
At many times, I was alone. I had to make even some decisions to quit some WhatsApp groups and just process what this season means for me.
Yeah.
I'm an introvert, so I find strength in solitude,
Yes.
I find my strength in solitude. I find my strength, and I'm able to look at things better when I'm alone.
Yeah.
So I had just had to knew first that this is my new life. It has come my way. And some decisions are so final that I cannot do anything about them. So I'm going to have to do what needs to be done. But life has to move on.
Yeah.
And it's my pain of loss, it's my pain of grief, and my pain of having to defer dreams that I found my purpose in
Okay.
life.
Right.
And so I tell people, don't waste pain.
Yeah.
Don't ever.
Okay.
Don't waste pain. Don't waste failure. Difficult seasons come, many beyond our control, but you can turn it around and tell it differently.
Yes.
That's my story, and that's a story I share in my coaching program, that life can deal you things,
Yeah.
can deal you trouble, can deal you tears. And things sometimes happen, like for me, they were happening fast and furious. I didn't have time to process.
Yeah.
I didn't have time to think, oh, my mom is gone. Oh, my
Yeah.
grandma is gone. Oh, my sister is suffering here and she needs my support.
Yeah.
So I had to pull myself together for the sake of my sister, who I love very much, and just be strong for her. But my pain for me gave birth to my purpose in life.
Okay. Well, I mean, wow, that's a lot.
A
I
lot,
don't even know how,
a lot.
like, but you did mention something. You've talked about losing, you went through a season of losing friends and losing money. Under what circumstances was this happening? Because I'd hate to think that when you're going through your toughest time is when, additional issues come up?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Friends, sometimes the people we call friends are not friends.
Yeah.
Maybe they are our friends because we hold certain positions,
Mm-hmm.
or they are our friends because someone might like we drive the same kind of a car, so we
Yeah.
are friends. We met at a garage, so we are friends.
Mm-hmm.
We were colleagues, so you might be thinking, get into this deception that colleagues are friends.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, some of them are,
Mm-hmm.
because some of them are even my friends today.
Mm-hmm.
But so my life quickly changed because this found that sometimes I would be invited to places, to parties, to
Yeah.
social places. Suddenly, I couldn't be invited. Suddenly, I didn't have this time. I didn't have the money. I knew that one of the difficult decisions I had to do, and not very difficult, because for me, I didn't struggle with it, was to say, well, now I have this kind of bills that needs to be paid. I don't have a steady income stream at this time.
Yeah.
Remember, COVID had just kicked in, so the
Yeah.
business was not performing so well
True.
as it was doing before. But my quick decision was I had to recollect myself and say, if I was the kind of person who used to buy shoes, buy clothes, I wasn't even able to do it. And sometimes it was a real struggle. I mean, bills piled even more than my income was at the time.
Yeah.
I had some liabilities that I had to pay, and I was not able to pay them.
Okay.
So that meant that I had to be frugal in whatever little money I find in my hand.
Yeah.
I had to be very frugal, and I didn't struggle with that. Like I stayed for some time without buying extra pairs of shoes, buying more dresses, going to places, because I knew at that point my life needed for me to do that.
Yeah.
It was just to recollect myself. And I think for me also, I am gifted in that I don't hang on to things. All right? So when I said something is not working, like some friends, they have walked out of your life, you call them, you realize, they don't have to tell you, but you can see it, you can
Yeah.
figure it.
Yeah.
So I lost people. Some people walked out of my life. Many friends I had then are not no longer in my life.
Okay.
Some people I thought would hang out with, I lost friends. Some stood by. I got new friends also. So not everything was working
Yeah.
negatively. Some of it also was opening my eyes to see things that I had not seen. I now began to value authentic relationships, people who are in your life because of who you are, not because of what you have or where you work or the kind of a job you have. I had to redefine my path and redefine. I lost money because business was not doing well.
Yeah.
I had to take in a sister and taking her with her. Just she was not coming alone. She had children,
Yes.
so you're losing money there. So I even lost my car. I lost a car at the time, and I cried and I was like, "Oh my God!" I
What
mean,
happened? What happened to the car?
what happened to the car is that I had taken a loan and had secured it with a car.
Yeah.
But this loan, because of liabilities and I'm not able to meet all my obligations, it meant the car had to go. Okay? Because I was not able to meet my obligation. This loan,
Yeah.
and I felt that is a time also that I saw some people you thought they had your back,
Yeah.
but everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
Because I think now the version of Beth that I am today, I'm able to see things differently than I was then. Uh, my eyes have been opened, and I share with people: look at patterns properly, learn your cycles, learn the seasons of your life, because life does speak to us.
Yeah.
Your life speaks to you. My life speaks to me.
Yeah.
And these days, I am big on learning the seasons of my life. And I knew I don't even have the time to mourn that I was used to driving and having a car, but now I have to use public means. By the way, there was no day that I felt like shame.
Yeah.
I just had to figure out my life together and just accept it as it came. I knew that was an important phase of my life, and I had to figure it out. I also didn't want to. I have known, I would say, like Paul of the Bible, I have learned to live with so much, very much more than enough, way more than enough, and also have learned to deal with little that comes my way. As long as I'm not sleeping hungry, I have not lacked food, I've not lacked the basics of
True.
life, and I have never lacked by God's grace lacked basics. So what needed to go had to go. I had to reorganize myself. I had to look at my budget. What can I afford at this season? What can't I afford at this season?
Yeah.
What can I work with? What can't I work with? And just deal with it as it comes. And so that's why I'm very big on resilience. I speak the language of resilience. I say resilience is my language because at the time I was building inner capacity for me to share my lessons with people and not even to be ashamed about it. Not to be ashamed about the seasons I've got to go through. Because one thing that God helped me is that I didn't see that as a season that defined who I am.
Right. Okay. The question that keeps ringing in my head as you're talking, so I'm wondering how big was the lifestyle you were living while you were employed that caused everything to just spectacularly fall apart? Because when you say you've learned to live with a lot and you've learned to live with frugality,
Yeah.
is that a lot is relative? Maybe a lot for me is moving from my little, shack in Kibra to, a bigger shack also in Kibra. So I'm trying to define what was your standard of the big life and then the small life.
The standard of the big life, some of it came with the job that I was holding at the
Yeah.
time. As an executive assistant, that job came with sometimes some nice perks.
Yes.
And I didn't like basic things it could pay for me, like my internet at home, it paid for
Yeah.
me, my telephone bills, it paid for me. I could not even stay without a car, for example, because my position, it says like if you don't have, if your car anytime like my car was in the garage,
Uh-huh.
sometimes I had to be provided with a car to
Ooh.
move around with. Yes,
Uh-huh.
uh, as in I had life that I really envied. I didn't sit down sometimes even to calculate. where do I want to hang out? What do I want to buy? Most of it, I'll just like, I have the
Mhm.
money to buy, so let me make this decision. I want to buy this.
Mhm.
I want to do this. I want, if I feel like I want to, I'll decide I want to sleep in Naivasha. In Naivasha, I will sleep.
Okay.
I just said I'm driving. I want to go
Not a
and
chopper, you would, but if you wanted a chopper, could you get a chopper?
no, no, no.
Okay.
No, but
Uh-huh.
what I'm trying to say is my life was very, very easy. And
Yeah.
again, because as a single person, so
Mhm.
making decisions also was easy for me
Mhm.
because I knew most of the decisions are revolved around me, Beth, as
Yeah.
a person.
Mhm.
And yeah, I was a happy-go-lucky kind of a person. I am
Mhm.
not the very party social animal.
Yeah.
I've never been.
Mhm.
That I have never been. All I know is that I lived a life I was very relatively very comfortable with.
Yeah.
I had friends of that status, would go
Yes.
places, would hold parties, would do things.
Mhm.
I had that life that reflected, what you
Yeah.
feel like you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but things happened, and things happened
Yeah.
for me.
Mhm.
And I had find myself in this other side of
Mhm.
I can't even go out. I'm not going out.
Yeah.
In fact, because part of my grieving was kind of to isolate myself, kiasi to not, that's not so much,
Yeah.
but just so for me to process all this.
Yes.
I also realized some of the things now in hindsight were also mistakes that I did
Mhm.
in terms of spending instead of some of the things that I say is my mistakes. I also learned from my mistakes. In
Mhm.
hindsight, I say there are things I could have handled better.
Mhm.
There are better decisions I could have done.
Yeah.
But for me, those are they're lessons for me to learn and
Mhm.
how to share with others.
Mhm.
There are lessons and there are things you can avoid.
Mhm.
But as I said, don't waste anything. We've just come from the pandemic. And you remember during the pandemic, we were told, don't waste pain, don't waste
Yeah.
this pandemic.
Yeah.
So at the same thing, when for me, that was a season what I've learned is not to waste. I'm
Mhm.
now very, what can I say? I am very alive and sensitive about every decision I make, eh?
Mhm.
Whether it's a money decision or a relationship decision,
Mhm.
or who am I hanging around with, what am I doing with my time, who am I speaking to, and also who is speaking to me.
Yes.
I make those decisions very intentionally. Nothing just slips by
Mhm.
because I have allowed my dark season and my difficult season, my painful season, my season of sometimes loneliness because I had to really cut myself,
Yeah.
really sit down and say, what does this new life require of me to do?
Mhm.
And quickly make those decisions.
Mhm.
Also, I am not the kind of a person to dilly-dally over something.
Mhm.
When a mess has happened, I quickly want to ask myself, not allow anything to hold me back. I move on a bit so quickly.
Mhm.
That's my personality. As in, I don't linger over things that water under the bridge,
Yeah.
the past,
Mhm.
things that define me. I don't let myself linger so much around that. And that has helped me so much.
Mhm.
That has helped me to say, there's much more to life
Mhm.
and just move on.
Mhm.
Because, this failure, these mistakes, these seasons that come at us, they could be just bumps on the road. Yeah, they are
Mhm.
bumpy. It's bumpy. No road is ever smooth. So the more you linger onto something, the more you could be missing out on another beautiful season that awaits you.
Mhm.
So yeah, and that is one of the things I really share in bouncing back and be because I have been able to bounce back and to shine my light and share my story, and not just share my story, but partner with people in their bouncing back, in their moving after setbacks,
Mhm.
and defining who they really are and what works for them and what purpose they live for.
Okay, so you talk about seasons, and I'm a huge believer in the same concept, as in there's a time to plant, there's a time to harvest, there's a time for the soil to lay dormant. But I want to know from you specifically, what do you think is the purpose of this winter season? Because it's a very painful, cold, lonely, dark season. Must we all go through it? And like, what is its point? What is it there for?
Must we all go? Interesting question.
Yeah.
But this much I'll tell you, I know every great person I know
Mm-hmm.
has gone through seasons of their life they felt like they want just to die.
Mm-hmm.
Every great person, name them.
Okay.
Every great, from Nelson Mandela,
Yeah.
could be Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Oprah Winfrey, the
Mm.
big names, but
Mm-hmm.
also our everyday heroes in our lives.
True.
Every great person I know, if you pick five great people, in one or four out of five, or all of the five, they have gone through devastating life things. I mean, life situations. They've gone through adversity.
Mm-hmm.
They've gone through failure,
Mm-hmm.
gone through shame. The difference is how they allowed and they shifted their mindset
Mm-hmm.
to this working for them.
Mm-hmm.
Must we all go to? I don't know whether it's must, but this I can tell you for sure.
Yeah.
Failure will come.
Okay.
Loss will come. It will knock at you because it's life. It's the inevitable. It will happen. If it has happened, not happened to you, prepare for it. It's coming.
Okay.
If it has happened to someone, let it not define you.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get so caught up and you almost make a romantic relationship with failure
Mm-hmm.
or with setbacks that you're unable to move ahead.
Yeah.
Let failure teach you what it can teach you, and also separate yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Separate. And that's what I have learned from every great person I know. They have been able to call fear for what it is,
Mm-hmm.
or call failure for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Call failure what it is, but tell this, that's who you are, but not who I am.
Yeah.
Separate yourself. Sometimes I like to say, make that, separate yourself. I failed maybe at my job, or I was a setback came, grief came knocking my way, divorce came knocking my way, a job loss came knocking my way, but don't linger on it too much,
Mm-hmm.
because you are the master of your destiny. You get to create your destiny. So the long you're waiting on this thing, feel the feelings I say. Feel all the feelings that you need to feel,
Mm-hmm.
because it's important that we feel those feelings.
Yeah.
Feel the feelings, but don't get stuck.
Mm-hmm.
But don't let it destroy you.
Mm-hmm.
Don't die in your wilderness period. I
Yeah.
say, don't die.
Yeah.
And also, not just die, but also don't bury your dreams because of one difficult season of your
Mm-hmm.
life.
Mm-hmm.
You have the power to to choose. Usually it's like the phoenix, the proverbial phoenix, from the Greek mythology. There's a bird called the phoenix
Mm-hmm.
that lives for long, then dies,
Yeah.
and is able to rise again from the
Mm-hmm.
ashes.
Mm-hmm.
So whether you get to rise or stay with the ashes, it's your
Yeah.
decision. It's all up to you.
So, okay, back to you specifically and how you applied this to your life,
Yeah.
because you've gone through this. You've literally not only, well, you've been forced twice to move to Nyeri,
Yes.
first by COVID,
Mm.
and then secondly by circumstances. I suppose, you've had all of these situations thrown at you. How did you get to the point where you decided to design a program that would allow people to see the same things that you had seen and work through them? Like, what was the connection between the Beth who was grieving and the Beth who's here today?
Thank you for asking that question, because it brings me to say it's very important the kind of people you hang around with
Mm-hmm.
and the kind of people you walk this thing, the journey of life with.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened is I have a friend who is also a mentor, I would say a coach
Mm-hmm.
and a pastor. And for a long time, he said, I have been observing you. He told me, Beth, one day he just called me and told me, I've observed you, and the way you have navigated through pain and the loss that you have suffered. Because granted, he knew my story very well.
Mm-hmm.
He knew I lost my parents. He knew things I have lost. He knew about losing people. It's someone I have connected and closely dealt and deal with, and was constantly in the picture in my life.
Right.
So when he told me, I think you've navigated this season pretty well, and you need to share your lessons with people. At some point, I was like, really? And it helped me, because sometimes people know where you are the way where you doesn't know herself.
Mm-hmm.
People can see Beth the way Beth doesn't see herself.
Yeah.
So I said this person helped to call out purpose
Mm-hmm.
in me, because he called out and asked me, I would love, and told me I would want for you to come and share your story
Mm-hmm.
and your loss and all the things, your story with people. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's there. And that's for me the long and short of it, of how my coaching was born.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not, it's for me, it's purpose, because it gave me purpose.
Yeah.
I love to see people win. I'm big on people winning. I'm big on people living the dreams that
Yeah.
they were created to.
Yeah.
I'm big on positivity, and not just positivity. I'm big on going hard after the things that you feel you were created for.
Mm-hmm.
So when I shared my story, and after I shared my story there, then that opened doors for me to share my story again and again and again and again. And so out of my sharing the stories, when I felt now I want to sit down, all this way I tell my story, to sit down and say, I actually can teach and can partner with people
Mm-hmm.
through their journey. Because then once you share your story, what happens? People will come up, they will open up to you.
Yeah.
They will say, thank you for saying that, because in saying that, you helped me.
Mm-hmm.
So I realized this message was resonating with people. And for me, that's how my coaching business was born. And I began, and I found purpose. I'm saying, I have repeated that word many
Yeah.
times, because I'll do it even without money.
Mm-hmm.
I am just big on saying, you don't have to die there.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
don't have to let people, things, status define you.
Mm-hmm.
The whole power of whether you get to move forward or not
Mm-hmm.
lies strictly with you.
Yeah.
It lies with you. And there are many people this life who are willing to work with you. There are many people willing to support you.
Mm-hmm.
There are many people who are willing to see us win. Um, it takes a village to see. And for me,
Yeah.
it took a village. And so I am glad to share my story. I'm glad to share lessons that I learned. I'm glad to share how I've learned now about shifting my mindset,
Mm-hmm.
rewriting my story, telling my story differently, and share the same nuggets and the same with people and helping them. And that gives me every joy that I need. Yeah.
Okay. Alrighty. So, what format does your coaching take? Like, is it helping people mostly deal with grief, or is it the whole spectrum of loss?
No, loss happens to everybody.
Yeah.
Currently, we know across a globe, a lot is happening.
Yeah.
Disruption is happening, and now we know the new normal is just change. Change and disruption is our new normal.
Mm-hmm.
So my coaching program is not around grief,
Mm-hmm.
but about any loss or
Okay.
setback,
Okay.
or anyone who feel they've gone through something and they need to bounce back. They
Right.
need to find and reconnect with themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Because what happens when you go through adversity
Mm-hmm.
is sometimes you bury some parts of you.
Mm-hmm.
Some parts you bury your dreams.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you let yourself get lost
Yeah.
in it.
Mm-hmm.
So Bounce Back and Beam is a coaching program.
Mm-hmm.
And under it, I help people with discovering maybe their mindsets,
Mm-hmm.
and just say, what kind of mindset are you having? So under Bounce Back and Beam, which is an 8 week, sometimes because I do group coaching, I also do one-on-one coaching.
Mm-hmm.
I cover mindset beliefs, I cover goal setting, because there's a whole science behind goal setting.
Yeah.
Science teaches us that when you just lay down and write down your goals, everything in your life aligns towards achieving that goal.
Mm-hmm.
In building resilience, one of the things you need to do and cultivate is setting goals for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and goals that are aligned with your purpose,
Yeah.
goals that are aligned with your dreams, goals
Mm-hmm.
that are aligned with who is Beth.
Mm-hmm.
Not goals just for the sake of goals.
Yeah.
Not goals because you might feel good that I'm setting goals or I'm creating a vision board for myself.
Yeah.
But the whole science around who am I?
Yeah.
So I also help you uncover who am I, self awareness,
Mm-hmm.
and a bounce back.
Okay.
Because identity is important. And for you to say, who am I? So under Bounce Back and Beam, I cover a number of things: self-awareness, goal setting, building resilience.
Yeah.
I cover mindsets and just knowing what kind of mindset do you have.
Mm-hmm.
I also, because of it, I've realized most of us deal with a lot of conflict.
Mm-hmm.
Conflict maybe because of where we are working, conflict because of maybe the families we are coming from, community,
Yeah.
conflict also because of the communities we live in.
Mm-hmm.
Every one of us lives in community relationships, and one time or another, you'll find yourself in a conflict.
Mm-hmm.
So conflict resolution is also there. And my most important one is finding your life purpose,
Okay.
giving meaning to your life.
This is excellent. I mean, I'm so glad you were able to work, your experiences with grief and loss into something that can
Thank
shine
you.
a light on the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And so for those of us who are looking for assistance from you, where do we find you?
You can find me on my social media handles.
Yes,
I will
which are,
share.
yeah,
I will
they're on the
also share
screen.
my telephone number. Bounce Back and Beam is a business on its own. It's a coaching program on its own. So I'll
Hmm.
share the contact,
Hmm.
and I'll be glad. Be glad to just listen to you, work with you, support you. I'm a dream supporter. I partner with people, as I said.
Yeah.
I'm a dream partner. Mine
Hmm.
is just to partner with you in knowing and walking the journey and fulfilling your dreams and living your best life, because life happens
Yeah.
and life is through at you things, but don't get stuck there.
Okay.
Yeah.
My word, wow, I feel inspired. I think at some point I was also literally just about to cry because, wow, what a powerful
I
story.
saw you almost cry. You
I
almost
did.
made me cry as well. But emotions are important
Yeah,
because they connect us with ourselves.
this is true.
The most important thing is how to interpret those emotions and how do we let them work for us instead of
Mhm.
for working against us.
This
Yeah.
is the absolute truth. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think you can tell by now that you absolutely need to be speaking to Beth. So please make sure you do, because I know everyone watching this has experienced loss or failure of some sort, and you could do with someone to hold your hand and guide you back to success. So on that note, I would urge you to use the social media handles and the phone number that you see in front of you, and we shall see you next week for another one just like this one.